So at this time, I am delighted to introduce our keynote speaker, a trailblazing leader who exemplifies the commitment to service and excellence that we seek to impart upon our students. The Honorable Goodwin Liu is an Associate Justice of the California Supreme Court. Before joining the state's highest court in 2011, Justice Liu was a professor of law and associate dean at UC Berkeley School of Law. He is an elected member and chair of the board of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He is also an elected member of the American Law Institute and the American Philosophical Society, in addition to having served on the board of numerous service organizations and academic institutions. Justice Liu probably doesn't remember this, but he is one of the first law professors I met when I was a baby law professor back in 2008 at Berkeley, visiting for a conference. So I'm a longtime fan. He is the son of Taiwanese immigrants. Justice Liu grew up in Sacramento, and he earned a bachelor's degree in biology from Stanford, a master's degree in philosophy and physiology from Oxford on a Rhodes Scholarship, and a JD from Yale. He clerked for Judge David Tatel on the U.S. Courts of Appeal of the D.C. Circuit, and for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the U.S. Supreme Court. His accomplished legal career also includes practicing at O'Melveny & Myers, serving in the U.S. Department of Education, and helping launch the AmeriCorps National Service Program. Please welcome California Supreme Court Justice Goodwin Liu.
First of all, don't be alarmed. That's just my security overhead. Dean Tolson, thank you so much for that generous introduction, and I want to begin by thanking you for your service to this law school and agreeing to be dean. You know, reading the headlines these days, a lot of people think that anybody who wants to be a university administrator right now should probably get their head checked. But when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and so thank you for your service. And I might add, thank you for making history at this law school just by being who you are and doing what you do. And what I mean is you're the first law dean I know who wears Converse sneakers to commencement. Distinguished faculty, honored guests, family, friends, and most especially the USC Law School class of 2024. I'm thrilled to be here with you on this happy day. I'm honored to be with all of you in this beautiful community. And when I say beautiful, I don't mean anything especially deep or meaningful. I just mean you're exceptionally good looking. I mean, come on, it's USC, right? Graduates, some people wondered if I would skip this event because of the protests. Well, I thought to myself, why would I skip a party with 1,000 of my closest friends? There's a time and place for everything, and you worked hard, you earned this day. I figure you're showing up, so I'm showing up, and we're gonna have some fun together. To the parents, the family, and friends who are here, welcome to USC International Airport. Thank you for arriving 2 hours early and for leaving all your carry-on items at home. No threats or lawyer jokes of any kind will be tolerated. We'll begin the boarding process in a few minutes. This flight is to the legal profession. If you're here for medicine or something like that, it's somewhere else. Go see a customer service agent. Seriously, all of you went to great effort to be here today, and I just want to take a moment for the graduates, another time, to turn around, stand up if you're able, turn around, stand up, turn around, and let it loose for your parents, for your family, for your spouses, for your siblings, everyone who raised you, your significant others, your partners, those who loved you, supported you, sacrificed for you so you could be here today. All right. So I'm very fond of this commencement because it was right here at USC Law School that I gave my first commencement speech as a judge, actually, 12 years ago. I guess I didn't mess it up too badly, so they asked me again, or maybe they're saying, try again. A lot has happened in 12 years. We've gone from iPhone 5 to 15. We've gone from Instagram to YouTube Shorts, which the first time I heard of it, I thought was a piece of clothing, frankly. 4 years ago, there was a global pandemic, a contentious election. Now in 2024, who would have thought we'd be seeing the same two people in the news day in and day out? I am referring, of course, to the pair whose names start with B and T, Beyonce and Taylor Swift. Anybody here been to Eras Tour? Yeah? How about Renaissance? Anybody been to Renaissance? All right. That's good. You weren't too busy studying torts to go to Eras and Renaissance. You know, I saw the Renaissance movie with my 16-year-old daughter last December on the second night of its release, right here in Hollywood, in fact. We happened to be here. And I'll tell you, the one thing I remember is that I'm pretty sure I was the only Supreme Court justice in the audience that day. Long live Queen Bee. Another thing that's different from 12 years ago is, of course, the encampment. Oh yeah, we're going there. Yeah. Who would have thought that USC would be a hotbed of student protest and activism? You know, it's pretty striking, you know. It's pretty striking, the tents and the protest signs amidst the fountains and manicured lawns. You know, I asked ChatGPT what historical precedent there was for this. And it said the only other time that USC students have camped out was for tickets to see Bronny James' debut in the Galen Center last December. Right? Fight on. Well, okay, so the past few weeks have caused me to reflect on my own experience as an anti-war protester. True story. True story. I'm not kidding. I was briefly an anti-war protester. It was the fall of 1990, my senior year of college, at that other private institution up north with fountains and manicured lawns and such. Starts with an S. So Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and in response, the United States had assembled a big coalition in the Persian Gulf. The United Nations had imposed sanctions on Iraq, but Iraq wouldn't leave. There was talk of non-appeasement and liberating Kuwait, and a final UN resolution had given Iraq a deadline of January 15th to withdraw. Meanwhile, the United States was preparing for war with over 600,000 troops, the biggest deployment since World War II. On campus, I was a student government nerd. I had been elected co-president of the student body, and I was pushing a resolution opposing war. The argument was that we had not allowed enough time for the sanctions to work, and that our president at the time, George H.W. Bush, was pursuing a war to keep oil prices low in a sagging economy. So on January 15th, the day of the withdrawal deadline, there was an anti-war rally in the middle of campus with over 700 people, and I was one of the speakers. And I can't remember a thing I said, but I'm sure I said it with great conviction. So the January 15 deadline passed, and in the early morning of January 17, the US-led coalition began bombing Baghdad. And I will never forget it, because thanks to CNN, it was the first time in history that a war was broadcast live on television. The over 50 crowd here will remember exactly what I am talking about. And since our anti-war rally obviously hadn't worked, we pivoted instead to insisting that the university cancel classes for a teach-in. Well, they didn't cancel classes, but there was a 2-day teach-in the following week. And I'm sure we made a bunch of other demands, including that the university issue a statement condemning the war, which it did not do. And some months later, I gave a speech to the student body urging my peers to, quote, take a stand, right? Again, I don't remember a thing I said, but I do know from an old photo that I had a really bad haircut and wore a really bad suit. All of this may be surprising to you. Frankly, it's a bit surprising to me. I mean, my resume doesn't exactly scream anti-war protester, right? Clerking, big law, academia, it all has a kind of establishment orientation. You know, I'm actually a judge. I guess that makes me the establishment, right? So how did this happen? How do you go from being, you know, an anti-war protester to an appellate judge? So I want to give you 4 reflections on that journey. So number 1, I've learned that there's an important difference between tactics and beliefs. Just because someone doesn't share your tactics doesn't mean they don't share the same beliefs. This was hard for me to grasp in college, where I tend to think that at the time that participation in certain tactics, whether it was a rally or a teach-in or whatever it was a litmus test of sorts for beliefs, right? But that was wrong. It's important not to conflate those two things. To accomplish meaningful change in this world, we need people in different roles doing different things inside and outside the system. Number 2, on any issue or controversy, it's easy to make a point, much harder to make a difference. Have you ever seen a Twitter debate end with someone saying, you know what, all those points you made have convinced me I was wrong? Or have you ever been in a relationship and been in a fight, and your partner ever said to you, gee, honey, those are great points. You convinced me I'm wrong. You know, it's hard to date a lawyer, by the way. Can you imagine what that's like? You know, well, first of all, Iraq, so therefore, right? That's IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion, okay. So the idea is, you know, it's one thing to make a point, present an argument, lodge a dissent, but it's another thing to make real change. In a diverse society, it requires slow work, dialogue, compromise. If you want to make points, you can go on Twitter. If you want to make a difference, it requires more listening than talking, more interest in finding solutions than winning arguments. Number 3, this is related. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a bit of humility and an open mind. I'm sure my 20-year-old self, the anti-war protester, was brimming with smarts and conviction. But I'm also sure I was overly righteous and dismissive of contrary views. Experience has taught me that you can get more done in the world if you're not too sure you have all the answers. That actually may sound counterintuitive, but humility and openness signal confidence, actually, in who you are and what you believe, while inviting other people to lend their ideas and their talents in shaping a shared project or a common goal. Humility is too often mistaken for weakness, when in fact it's a hallmark of effective leadership. 4th and finally, my journey has been indelibly shaped by the decision to become a lawyer. You know, as was said, I grew up in an immigrant family, and I was the first to become a lawyer. I've had freedoms and opportunities that would not have been possible without the rule of law. Now, as a judge, I'm often called on to swear people into the bar. And ever since I watched The Mandalorian, I've been tempted to conclude the oath by saying, this is the way. Because the legal profession, right, is unique among professions in requiring not just qualifications, but an oath. An oath to support and defend the Constitution. And these are not mere words. It's a sacred honor and a professional duty. At a time when our country seems to be coming apart, lawyers have a special role to play in resolving disputes peacefully, healing our divides, and upholding the rule of law. As a lawyer, you are whom our society counts on to engage facts and reason, to see all sides, to promote understanding, to ensure that cooler heads prevail. And if you need inspiration, you don't have far to go. Just think back a few years to when you applied to law school. What was your answer to why you wanted to become a lawyer? I bet a nickel that you aspired to serve your community, to be a voice of reason, to be a problem solver, or to help those in need. I know you came to this place with hopes and dreams. And my one piece of advice for you is that you print a copy of your law school essay and keep it in the top drawer of your desk throughout your career, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And let it be a reminder of why you became a lawyer. Not just because you wanted a job, but because you felt a calling. I'll conclude with one last story, and it has to do with the bar exam. How many of you are taking the bar exam this summer? Yeah? How many of you are dreading taking the bar exam this summer? Okay. This is going to make you feel better. So 26 years ago, I graduated from Yale Law School. Yale has a big reputation for legal theory, not much reputation for teaching black letter law. Many of my classmates got their diplomas not knowing what are the elements of a tort. So when it was time for me to take the California bar, I did a bar review course. So for the first few weeks, I thought it was going pretty well. I actually enjoyed, believe it or not, the bar review course because they made the law seem so lucid and clear. That summer, I was working during the day, so I didn't have time to study outside of the evening classes that I was doing, but that was okay because the material seemed very manageable. Just before the July 4th holiday, the review course, gives you a practice multi-state exam covering all the subjects, torts, contracts, property, evidence, the rest. The practice test was given nationwide, and you get your score for each subject as a percentile rank, okay? So you know roughly where you stand relative to everyone else and how much studying you need to do for the month of July, okay? So I took the practice exam and then got my scores, had a very nice July 4th weekend, and got my scores. In con law, which is a Yale specialty, I scored above the 70th percentile. Not bad, right? Didn't study, not bad. But in the common law subjects, the stuff that state Supreme Court justices are supposed to know, I didn't make the 70th percentile. I didn't make the 50th percentile. I did not make the 25th percentile. No, ladies and gentlemen, in contracts, I will never forget this, the number on my scorecard said 3. Yes, 3. Now, you will recall 3 is an unimpressive score on the 5-point scale for high school AP exams. My 3 meant I was in the 3rd percentile nationwide in contracts. 97% of people knew more contracts than I did, which meant not only did I not know any contracts, but apparently I was determined to prove I did not know any contracts. And it was much the same story for evidence towards property, where my scores were in the teens or low 20s. That July was the least fun I've had in a very long time, but I did get my act together, and I did pass the bar exam. So, what is the lesson of this story? The lesson is that if you graduate from this law school knowing almost nothing about law, not only can you still pass the bar exam, you too can become a California Supreme Court justice. That's all I have. Congratulations, USC Law School class of 2024. Live your dreams, fight on.